Welcome to the CFB Dynasty Podcast with hosts Matt Knowles and Brian McElfish.
Hey everybody, how you doing out there? This is the CFBDynasty.com podcast. My name is Matt Knowles. As always, joining me over here, one of these sides, you got the founder and the creator, Mr. Brian McElfish. And always, when he doesn't have something better to do, he hangs out with us, Mr. Doug Gravely. Brian, Doug, how you guys doing today?
What up?
Hey, Matt, I'm doing good, man. How are you today?
Doing good, man. Today we have a totally different style topic for you. We've already gone through for college preseason quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight end. Today we're going to cover quarterbacks for Devy. So if that is a term that you're unfamiliar with, BMAC, why don't you put yourself on the big screen and why don't you tell everybody what Devy is and why it's important?
Yeah, thanks. So it's more of like a term for like a developmental player. There's like roster spots. There's a couple different ways people do it. So Devy, in our sense, for our CFB dynasty, like we called it a dynasty league, whatever. You have your college players that graduate onto your NFL team. That is not Devy necessarily. Devy leagues in a lot of cases are just an NFL league where you draft and hold college players over. You draft them for pro potential. They're not necessarily accruing points, and there's no college fantasy side to it. But it's all about drafting players that are fit for the NFL. So if you look at our rankings, in the past we've had 3 different sets of rankings that we produce. We had like our version where it was a true college to pro league, which is difficult to balance. Like, do you want the Boise State or Houston quarterback that has no potential? It's really about a balancing act, right? So if you've got 5 quarterbacks, you want a couple that are stat getters in college and the rest that are NFL potential, because that's something that if you don't hit for your NFL side of your squad for a few years, you're going to be paying up to make a trade. But yeah, in most cases, it's simply pro potential, and that's how we've ranked our Devy rankings. So you could be a freshman, junior, sophomore, senior, whatever. What are the guys that have the best pro potential right now? And that's what we'll be talking about today. But question for you, Matt. Doug and I were talking about this, like a night version of the show, because I'm someone who is like hyper introverted and not really, easy to pull my personality out. What if we did a Scotch edition, late night version of the show, and just give it a test and kind of see how it would work out?
Hey, I'm up for anything, even though I'd be the sober one. Let you guys be the old, teetotalers over there, man. Well, it's fine with me as long as we can find a time to do it.
Hey, man, all I know is that when we have our Doug and Brian Scotch / whiskey, I guess, rectangle conversations on the porch at Brian's house.
What are we talking about here with rectangles?
It's not a square. It's not a square table or a round table. It's more of a rectangle table outside.
Gotcha.
So, I mean, come on. You got to pick up what I'm putting down there, Brian. Man, Brian comes up with some pretty good, pretty solid college football chats. I will tell you. I mean, it's solid, and we have nights where we talk about it till like 11:30 at night, and I'm like, dang, I really got to go. But yeah, it's.
Then you get in the car and you're like, what did we even just talk about?
I think it would be a really fun addition. So,
yeah, like I said, man, I'm down with it. We can figure out a way to do it. It's all good. It's all good.
Do you have a favorite? Are you a whiskey guy or not, Matt?
Never drank my entire life, man.
Yeah, I never did till my 30s, really. So
yep, never drank my entire life. Got my coffee, got my water. That's about it.
Mm-hmm. Are you a fan of Parks and Rec at all? Did you watch that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Ron Swanson, his character is like and he is in real life. He's a fan of this Scotch Lagavulin, and anyways, it's my favorite. It's very good, and you can come feel free to try it if you want on the show for the first time, and let's see where the conversation goes.
I will tell you, Matt, I wasn't a fan of it at first, but the taste buds in the old mouth are starting to change a little bit, and it's a nice little taste.
I'll let you guys be the consumers of it, and I will just mediate and moderate. You guys being all crazy, it's all good. So not sure how we just went down this path, but let's go back to Devy just a little bit. So one of the things on Devy that is interesting, whether you're looking at an actual Devy league or college to pro, is that you're going to have on the website, you'll have your top 25 like we do for college to pro or for college leagues. But think about this year in the draft, or think about the last 4 years in the NFL. How many new quarterbacks have come in a 4-year span that actually are producing at solid levels? The numbers are very, very low. So there's a lot of lottery when it comes to Devy, as far as who's actually going to be the one that's going to get the playing time. You could have a guy that is killing it in college and looks like he's got all the potential in the world, and then he gets drafted to be the guy that sits for 3 years behind someone else. You could have a guy like Trey Lance that you don't even have a chance to draft him because he's coming out of the FCS ranks, or Joe Flacco, where a guy that you don't even have a chance to pick him up until he actually is in the NFL. So finding those studs that are going to be your pro caliber players are going to be a lot more difficult in Devy. I think that wide receiver is probably going to be the most difficult, because guys that are the top guys in college, a lot of them have the least pro potential. Mm-hmm. If you went back and looked at my roster from 2 years ago, I had guys in college that were throwing down some stats for me, and I think 5 of them were NFL UDFAs or didn't even make a mini camp. Like, they go to a mini camp, didn't even sign with a team. So keep that in mind when you're looking at college to pro potential, especially in quarterbacks. Just because a guy makes the top 15, that doesn't mean he's ever going to get an NFL stat, but you got to you take your chances.
Yeah. And also, like, you kind of see the trend, and it really started with Lamar Jackson and kind of how the Ravens shifted their roster to kind of fit his game. You're seeing that shift a bit more and more in the NFL, which we knew would come at some point. Came a little late for Tebow and Johnny Manziel. Not that they would have worked out either way, but now is the time where dual threat guys, it's more set up for them to success, and then to have success. And then you think about looking at just the quarterback archetype is a little different. Like, do you want a Tyler Van Dyke, even if you considered him an elite passer, if he goes back to what he was a couple years ago and has a great season and comes out as a first-round pick on your fantasy team, do you want him, or would you rather take a shot in the dark? Maybe not shot in the dark, but whatever. Someone like a Jalen Milroe, who his ceiling is crazy high. Like, right now in drafts, whether you agree with it or not, from what I've seen, like, it's debatable if you're going to take a Bryce Young or Anthony Richardson. I'm a Bryce Young owner, obviously have the Gator hat on and way more palm trees on my shirt than anyone else today. But I think, Anthony Richardson's going high because of his ceiling. Bryce Young certainly has a much higher floor, but because Anthony Richardson is a true dual threat and he's got the opportunity to put up numbers like Josh Allen, that's kind of what you look at is Lamar Jackson's MVP season, Josh Allen, how he's been the last couple of years. Like, those are the difference makers. Whereas once you get outside the top 11, top 12, even if you're an elite pocket passer, your ceiling's limited.
Yeah, you look at the difference, like, so in the pros, for example, like a Patrick Mahomes, great passer, but he added a little bit of a running element to his game this year. I mean, I think he ran for like 4 touchdowns in the pros and stuff. Even a player his caliber that can throw the ball in whatever window you give him. I mean, he's adding that element to his game. So I think you're hitting the nail on the head that's becoming a really serious thing that fantasy owners need to look at, as far as somebody that maybe it's not what they are elite in. I mean, you look at you guys know I'm a Jags fan. Look at Trevor Lawrence. His first decision isn't to run, but he will. Yeah. And I think, a lot of these quarterbacks are drifting that direction to where, yes, they can put the ball in these tight windows, but if they have to run, they're going to run.
Well, I think too, if you look at what the NFL is now compared to 10 years ago, 20 years ago, now you have a 17-game season, especially when you've got guys that are more, more dual threat. You're going to need two quarterbacks. You're going to need somebody that has the possibility. You might have a guy that is, you might not have Patrick Mahomes, but you might have his backup. You might not have Lamar Jackson, but you might have his backup. Because those guys may end up being the guys like in Baltimore that make the freaking Pro Bowl roster. Yep. I'm like, don't even get me started on the insanity of that. But it just goes to show that in the NFL nowadays, you don't have to be, there's only going to be 32 guys that are going to get stats at a quarterback position. You might have a guy that becomes almost like a flyer. He might not get stats every week, but he might get 3 or 4 starts in the middle of a season and blow it up and then go back to obscurity once the starter comes back. Yep. That's going to happen from time to time just because of injuries, because of attrition, teams trying to save quarterbacks for the playoffs. I think you see that more and more nowadays. So you do have to have your eyes on a few more guys than you would have back in the day.
The other thing about Devy that's super fun, if you're not in a Devy league or whatever yet, is just the draft. It totally changes the draft. So if you've got Devy guys on your roster and you're just kind of watching them where they get drafted, and you kind of have a vision or whatever for a path that someone's career could take. So if you consider like an Anthony Richardson, who probably should have stayed in college and got more reps under his belt before he made the leap, but he's got that Josh Allen-ish potential where, he'll be immediately one of the top 3 best running quarterbacks in the NFL. But you could also see where his, passer or completion percentage is below 60%, throws some interceptions and like loses confidence early. You could see that path, and we're going to find out sooner than later because he got drafted by the Colts and that he's probably going to start. Whereas if he would have fell a little bit and maybe Seattle picks him up and he sits a year, gets some more reps, practice reps, you could see it kind of totally change in a different system. So, but it does make the draft super fun. And that's the kind of part of the luck, I guess, is hoping your players find the right fit, like a Rashee Rice going to the Chiefs that I'm super excited about. But anyways, we're talking quarterbacks today, so get me back in line.
Yeah, one of the things that I really do appreciate, like you talk about differences in drafts. I know that our home league where this all started is not Devy, but if you've never done a college to pro league with limited pickups like we have, the draft for that league is one of the craziest things you'll ever see. If you go into an NFL draft, you know who the top 12 guys are going to be coming off the board, unless somebody just is inexperienced in the draft or somebody is intentionally going after a sleeper in the first round. You know who the top 12 guys are going to be, just the order is going to be shuffled around. When you've got teams where, that, like you said, if you're talking Devy, you're talking college to pro, teams may not have that need at a specific spot. So there may be the number 1 quarterback out there, and they're like, I don't need that guy because I'm deficient at running back. I'm deficient at wide receiver, or I want to reach on that freshman instead of the senior that's coming out this year. Just looking at the way first rounds go down, I know that there's been times that we've looked at a first round and maybe 3 or 4 of the guys that get drafted are the guys that you would have expected to be there because guys are looking to fill spots. Guys are looking, hey, you know what? I want to go get that freshman. Or I know, especially in our league, there's a lot of Florida State fans. There's a lot of Florida fans. Guys will overreach so hard to get their Florida guys because they know if I don't get that Florida guy who's maybe a 4th round talent in the first round, I'm not going to get a chance because if I don't get him, then somebody else is going to reach in the second. So you see a lot of crazy things like that. It makes the draft unpredictable. It's always great to be able to see the different thought processes. So if you've never done college to pro, never done Devy, highly recommend trying it once. And when I say once, that doesn't mean for 1 year. You got to do it for a couple years to really truly see the benefits and the drawbacks and the strategies. But you definitely want to find a way to at least experience it once, because it's definitely different than anything else you've ever been a part of.
Oh man, since I joined this, I think I'm going on my 4th season with you guys now. I mean,
I think you can call it us guys now. Since it's 4 years, it's been with us.
So 4 years, 4 years with the crew. It's definitely different. I was always just an NFL fantasy guy. You know, you're drafting every year, and you kind of know, and it changes a little bit. But like you said, Matt, every year it seems like the top 10 guys are the top 10 guys. You know, these are the guys that are going to go. You know, these guys are going to go. Yeah, you've got like a Justin Jefferson that comes in the league and goes off, Jamar Chase. So that type of stuff changes once in a while. But you know, like your top 10 guys are going to be the top 10 guys. It may be reversed a little bit, like, oh, Chase went 5 instead of 6, but they're going to be the top 10. So one of the fun things about this league, and something that, you know, I hope to get better and better at, and we pick on Dillingham a lot, but we got guys in this league that can legitimately draft a player. They're perfectly fine with sitting on them for a year or two. And then all of a sudden we're like, how does this guy have so many pro starting running backs on their team? You know what I mean? It's just something that, like you guys said, they take kind of a shot in the dark a little bit, but they're okay with sitting on a guy for a couple of years. And that's what you have to be in this type of league, is okay with potentially sitting on somebody. And, you know,
imagine like a startup of this college to pro style format where we had 2 separate drafts. And I remember that day. Like, it was, I love drafting. That was so long. Our rosters, or those were whatever, 25 rounds each
50,
or
50,
longer.
Yeah, 50 total. Yeah, 50 total.
wow.
Imagine a combined draft where you could take from college or pro at the same time and kind of see, like, okay, if you've got, you know, Nico Iamaleava and Caleb Williams and Patrick Mahomes all in the pool available to draft at the same time. That would be a wild.
Is that how you guys did it?
Draft?
No,
we did 2 separate drafts.
I was going to say.
Yeah,
I've heard
that'd
of
be
people
nuts.
that have done that, and that would be nuts.
Well, I want to go back real quick. Just want to make sure we give a shout out. You mentioned Mike Dillingham. We bust on Mike all the time, but part of the reason we bust on Mike is because Mike is so ridiculously talented in the drafts. The dude hoards A-level blue chip players that nobody can ever get their hands on. And, you know, we got to pick on him because we can't get his players. So we have to find a way to break him down a little bit, so that maybe one of these days he makes a bad trade and we can get one of his 7 starting running backs that he has.
Yeah, we're going to mention another one of his players that he, you know, swooped up from people, you know, when we talk about this list that we're about to talk about. I mean, he's just, there's something he does that is a little bit different than everybody else, and he does a good job at it. But yeah, we like to bust on him a little bit, but when it comes to drafting, he's above average for sure. Like, he's good.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to get over here to the list. So we're going to do it a little bit differently than we did with the preseason top 25, simply because if we did it exactly the same, we'd just be saying the same things about the players. We want to talk about what puts these guys on the Devy list and what gives them the best possible chance to actually do something in the pros. So, all right, so if you're someone that is a fan of CFBDynasty.com, you can go over to the website, go to the rankings tab, go to the pull down, and you can look at the Devy rankings, look at quarterbacks. That way you can see what we're talking about. This list is probably not going to change much throughout the year.
Too. I need to make this look a little nicer. This is pretty terrible compared to the new stuff we have out.
Let's just call this is in Doug version right now.
Oh, wow.
Right. You talked about last week you had to get your sexy on, man. So, I mean, you know, this thing needs to go get the manicure and the pedicure and all that kind of stuff and the haircut like you did, man. It's the before.
It's fine. It's fine, Matt. Whatever. Fine.
All right. So if you go to that tab, you'll be able to follow along if you want. This is probably not going to change much on the website. We do have some fun stuff we can talk about after this about guys that came out of the woodwork in years past, but we'll get to that when we get there. So if we go over to this list, we'll look at 25 through 21. On the list right now, you've got sophomore Preston Stone out of SMU. You got Sam Hartman, Notre Dame. You got Garrett Nussmeier at 23 from LSU. Walker Howard from Mississippi, a freshman at 22. And then Cam Rising, my boy from Utah, senior at 21. Anybody specifically we want to call out in that group that catches your guys' eyes?
Go ahead, Matt.
Preston Stone, he's got a little bit of everything, right? Because he's in the prime offense for college fantasy production. So if it's a college to pro league, he's someone that's super appealing because he's got good size and arm strength and talent around him. He's going to put up the numbers, and with his size and ability to throw it all around the field, he's going to get the reps. He's going to get to show that. Whereas, maybe a Garrett Nussmeier at 23, he might not get a ton of reps, like at least a ton of throwing reps, depending on how that Brian Kelly offense kind of shifts. If he's able to win that job at some point, probably next year. But yeah, I like Stone a lot. He's going to have a ton of film by the end of his career. And then we'll see. He's someone who could move up the rankings for sure. And I like Walker Howard, like Cam Rising. Both of those guys can move around. Walker Howard is probably a couple years away from starting. Oddly, so going into the off season here or whatever, with the transfer portal and all that stuff happening at Ole Miss, they've got 3 quarterbacks there now. I felt bad as a Jackson Dart owner, but it seems like he's really held them off. It seems like I've seen writers say that he has the lead going into the fall, or summer. So we'll see. Walker Howard, Sanders, and Jackson Dart at Ole Miss. Whereas Sanders is less of a pro potential, but he's got 8 years of college great production.
Yeah, for sure. On that same avenue, being a Spencer Sanders owner, it's not really fun for me, but I didn't like the move for him in the first place. But we'll see what happens there. But I agree. My favorite on this list is Preston Stone. He's somebody, we mentioned, and he's a Dillingham guy. So Dillingham, if you're listening, you've been mentioned a lot, and we think your team's pretty solid. But so, yeah, I mean, Preston Stone's probably my favorite on this list. Quarterbacks at SMU, we've seen a lot of production from them in the past, and I don't think it's going to change. But a close second for me is probably Sam Howard. I'm excited to see what he does over at Notre Dame. But he was
Sam
great,
Hartman, I think.
or Sam Hartman, I'm sorry. Yeah, he was great at Wake, and we'll see what he can do in this different offense. I don't see him really losing a step there. But
I think it'll be interesting seeing.
Yeah, he would come into the NFL similar to what's his name? Hendon Hooker, where he's like end of his first contract, he's going to be in his upper 20s. So, but I like Hartman a lot. I think, he's a great player at the college level, and he's experienced. I think watching that Notre Dame offense is going to be a blast this year. I think he's going to be really good. And then, one of the guys we talked about on the receiver podcast, like Lorenzo Styles, who could break out as his, potential go-to receiver, he's now a corner, and he's transferred out of there. So we'll see who kind of evolves as that top target for Hartman at Notre Dame.
I'm definitely interested to see how Cam Rising does this year, because he's had so much good offensive talent with him, and it keeps on cycling through. And if he has another year where with new talent or different talent, he put some high level guys into the NFL, Dalton Kincaid. If he's able to show again with all this talent cycling through that he can still be an elite level quarterback and still improve, I think that his stock may rise a little bit, and he may be, no pun intended, and he could end up seeing some some good NFL potential, even though he's at 21 on this list. I think he's definitely got some NFL potential if he can string another good season together there at Utah.
Well, speaking of rising, I mean, they just got Micah Pittman transferred there. He's got another weapon that came in. And I mean, their tight end room is good
absurd.
anyway. So yeah, he could be another fun one to watch for sure.
All right, so we're going to move on to 20 through 16. This is when the list is going to get interesting. This is when you're going to see some big differences from what you would have seen in this standard preseason top 25 list. At 20, you got Phil Dracovic from Boston College. At 19, J.J. McCarthy.
BC, obviously, but
yeah. At 19, you got J.J. McCarthy from Michigan. At 18, Jackson Dart from Miss. 17, Tyler Van Dyke, Miami. And then 16, Malachi Nelson from USC. So the reason I bring that up is because you are never going to see two quarterbacks from the same school within 5 spots of each other on a weekly list, because that's just unrealistic. But in this, you're talking about pro potential. You're talking about guys that have a chance to go and do something when they get to the next level. So that's why you see 2 guys from Miss on this list. Anybody you guys want to call out on this group here?
I'll hit them real
JJ
quick. So
fan real fast, but I don't have much to say. I'm just gonna say that I'm a JJ McCarthy fan on this list. So
yeah, Dracovic was probably someone that will fall down and then in the next update on this list, just because I don't think this Pitt offense is going to be great. He's someone who's kind of been unlucky in terms of he's shown the potential. He's got dual threat ability, and just been injured or had a terrible O-line. And then we'll see how he does, without Zay Flowers, because Zay obviously, produced no matter who was playing quarterback, even the lowly Boston College offense. So he'll probably drop for us. JJ McCarthy, he's definitely got the ability to run, and the more reps he gets, the more comfortable he looks. He's got some potential there, and Jackson Dart is another one that's got it all. Van Dyke is more of a pocket style passer, so he's gonna be able to, if he produces really well this year, new OC at Miami, can totally see that happening. But he's still limited in terms of what he's going to produce for you at the NFL level, fantasy wise. He might be great for your team or your favorite team or whatever, but fantasy wise, because of his less ability to run, kind of limited. So, and then we went to 16, Matt.
Yep,
so
to
far.
16.
So yeah,
yep.
Malachi Nelson, the freshman, he's going to have to compete with Miller Moss next year after Caleb Williams leaves. But and I like Miller Moss. I think he's someone who's capable, but a lot of people think Malachi Nelson will be the next guy at USC.
All right, so now we're going to go to 15 through 11. So if I was putting this list together, we talk about which players would you put in a different spot. If you saw our freshman only mock draft that we did, you saw who the number 1 guy was for me. At 15, we have Arch Manning at Texas. If I was the one that was putting this list together, I would put Arch Manning all the way at number 1. We'll come back to that in just a minute.
Oh,
we'll come back to that in just a minute, why I make that statement, and we'll go from there. So 14, you got Bo Nix at Oregon. 13, Devin Brown at Ohio State. 12, you got Cade Klubnik at Clemson. And then 11, you got Ty Simpson at Alabama. So why would I make a statement like that about Arch Manning? So this is talking about guys that have got pro potential. Every other guy on this list does not have the name pedigree, the Hall of Fame pedigree, the Super Bowl winning quarterbacks, Super Bowl MVPs in their bloodline like Arch Manning. Arch Manning is going to get every possible opportunity to succeed, every possible chance to have mistakes that he makes washed under, or have people work with him to fix any kind of hiccup in his game. We'll talk about hiccups a little bit later. But I think that Arch Manning, out of all these guys, is going to have the best possible chance of actually getting those minutes at the pro level because of everybody that he's surrounded with. So that's why I would say that he's got the most chance to get to that level. Could you imagine being able to go and sit down after a game every single week on a conference call with Peyton and Eli and just talk about the things that happened that week with those guys there to help you with what he's going to experience at the college level, at the pro level. That's why I would say that I think that he is. And when I say generational, I don't mean generational as far as what the quality of his play is, but the guys that he's had around him his entire life, the bloodline pedigree that he has, I think that he probably has the best chance of going to the next level and giving. And maybe he doesn't deserve it. I'm not saying he does. I'm not saying he doesn't. I'm saying he is going to find a way to become a starting quarterback at the next level because of the people that he can surround himself with just at the breakfast table, at the Thanksgiving table, on Christmas morning, that nobody else has. So that's why, I mean, probably realistically, Arch Manning is where he should be. But I think if we're talking Devy, you're talking a guy that has a chance to actually get those minutes and get those chances at the pro level. That's why I would throw him to the top of the list. Doug, BMAC, I know you probably disagree with that, but I would definitely love to hear your thoughts on that.
Hey, I think it's a really good argument for honestly, Matt. Yes, I agree. He's going to get his chances. He's ultimately going to sit this year. Ewers is performing better, and Ewers was, in my opinion, probably more highly ranked than Manning was when they came out of high school. But again, Manning has been talked about for years already just because of the name. So I definitely get the argument. And it, like I said, it makes sense. But yeah, I like him at 15 here. Because there's just guys that I just like better.
Yeah, so if you're talking about guys coming out, talking guys coming out next year, I wouldn't put him higher. If you were like, hey, I need a guy that's going to be going into the pros in 2024, that would be insane because he's probably 6 years away from being able to have good solid pro potential as far as actually putting points up at the NFL level. But if we're talking about, I mean, there's a lot of other freshmen on here too, so.
I don't have a first round pick this year, but I'm looking at our draft here and I see Matt's somewhere in the 4 to 6 range. Hey, taking notes, look out. And I don't think that would be a bad pick either. Like, no. I think a ton of freshman quarterbacks are coming off the board and all of these style drafts really quickly. 100%. And so if you have one that you like, you better get them in that first round.
That's right. And hey, after 3 years, I finally had a dude graduate to the NFL. So finally I have a quarterback spot. Unbelievable.
That's funny. But I'd love to, touch on Bo Nix and just the idea of fit mattering so much to these people, whether they're at college or at the NFL level. And this is a feather in the cap for the transfer portal. And you see like the system Bo Nix was in at Auburn, and he had all the talent. He's got great running ability. And then you see what he's able to do within that Oregon offense after, you saw what happened the first game. Oregon gets absolutely crushed by Georgia. I think they put up 3 points in that game or something like that. And then he just goes on a run, and they've got young receivers. They've got, like, Oregon is so talented defensively, offensively along the line at receiver. I'm really impressed with what has happened with Bo Nix, and I hope more players can kind of find their perfect spot, just like he did. And so with Arch Manning, I worry about him beating out Malik Murphy. Malik's young. He's good and talented, but one of those guys is going to end up transferring, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
So we'll see what happens, kind of this season, but clearly looked like the third guy. But again, it's his first spring. So I totally buy in what you're selling on the, hey, he gets elite conversations all the time, understands how to process things, and quarterbacks that are going to talk to him that, will help his confidence level.
Just imagine that backyard. Yeah, just imagine that backyard Thanksgiving football game. Who do you draft first?
Yeah.
Who's your quarterback?
Who is your quarterback right there? Or are you going to be like Eli? You can go play wide receiver today. You can go play. Can you imagine Peyton Manning as the DB trying to cover somebody? How awkward that would be. But I'm like, you know what? I think I'd probably take that chance.
So Devin Brown, man, that Ohio State battle is going to get interesting because we've got the other Ohio State quarterback battling against him at number 6. So that one's going to be interesting. We'll see one of those guys probably take off and do really well this year. Anyways, Ty Simpson versus Milroe is going to be somewhat similar. And then they added another quarterback into the mix with Buckner coming over there. So no idea what's going to happen at that Alabama situation, but they've got 5 guys that are talented enough to start most other places in the sport, which is incredible.
Well, speaking of that, we'll go on to the next group of 5 from 10 to 6. We've mentioned a couple of these schools already, so it's going to be interesting to see where we go. You got Connor Weigman from Texas A&M at 10. You got Jalen Milroe, which was just mentioned, at number 9. You got Jackson Arnold, Oklahoma, at number 8. Nico Iamaleava, or however Doug pronounces it, at number 7 from Tennessee. And then you got Kyle McCord from Ohio State at 6. So there's a couple of schools there. Again, this is not a regular seasonal draft. This is not a regular seasonal league. That's why you've got multiple quarterbacks from the same school that are showing up in this list. Who stands out in this group 10 to 6 to you guys?
So the 2 for me, I'm going to go Nico and Jackson Arnold.
What's his last name again, Doug?
Iamaleava.
I think it's Iamaleava, but that's fine.
That's what it is, I think, because that's how I've heard it. But I like to put a Doug twist on it, so whatever.
Doug's like, I'm gonna leave this name pronunciation to someone else.
Yeah, that's why I just call him Nico. It's just easier.
If you just read it straight, it looks like he would be the worst recruit ever because Iamaleava. You kind of feel like he's getting ready to hit that portal at any point.
Right. So,
I told you.
But so with him being at Tennessee, if that offense stays the same, he's obviously going to be showcased whenever it's his time. I don't think it's going to be this year, but when it is his time, it could be. But
yeah,
I'm about 85%
in that spring game.
I'm about 85% sure it's not going to be this year. So, but in Oklahoma, they're so good when it comes to getting recruits. It seems like they've always got a flow of really good players coming in, and just what I've seen from Jackson Arnold, the stuff I've read about him, for the last, it seems like a year that we've been really trying to put all this stuff together. Like, Jackson Arnold seems to have all the tools that you would want in a quarterback that's ready to take over for another guy. Dylan Gabriel's been in college football for a long time, but Jackson Arnold just is probably honest.
Yeah. Okay, Robot Doug. I think ChatGPT got him Matt a little bit there. I don't know what's going on with the internet there, but AI got him. So
if that really is real Doug.
But for me, if you look at Milroe, and we've posted a couple like shorts of Milroe, he's the closest to an Anthony Richardson on this list, and maybe a Josh Allen-ish type of player. Like, Milroe's peak is ridiculously high. He is so fast. He's strong. He's got a big arm. He can run some people over. He can outrun you. He can juke you. Like, he's got it all if he puts it together. His tool set is there. He could totally also not ever kind of get the accuracy necessary to make it at the pro level. And you look at those, like Matt, you're talking about multiple quarterbacks from the same team, and Alabama is the best scenario right now where you could look at Milroe and Simpson and the two freshmen that they have along with Tyler Buckner, and you could say all of them are worthy. If they win that Alabama job, they've got all the tools at their disposal to have success at the highest level of the sport and get some NFL attention. So you think back to like maybe Jalen Hurts when Tua beat him out, won the championship. Hurts comes back for a year to Alabama and then eventually ends up at Oklahoma, which that's not something that you can foresee for any of these current Alabama quarterbacks. But you're balancing, you're favoring talent over position in some of these scenarios. So
Yeah.
like Milroe, like Arnold, but Wegman's the one who's going to start and play this year of the people in that list. And he's got Evan Stewart, one of the best pro potential wide receivers in the country. And we'll get to that in a couple weeks in Evan Stewart. But Wegman's got the opportunity to really move up, and he looked so good when he got his opportunity last year. We'll see how they are with the moving parts. This is like, could be really good, could be dumpster fire by week 5 kind of season for Texas A&M.
All right, so let's go to number 5 through number 2 on the list. Number 5, you got Dante Moore from UCLA. 4, we've already talked about Texas. Got Quinn Ewers at Texas. 3, Drew Aller from Penn State. And number 2, Drake May from UNC. You've seen a lot of these names on our college list, guys that are going to produce this year, guys that have the best potential to go into the pros and do something. So who do we want to call out in that group from 5 to 2 on this show?
Well,
go ahead, Doug. You got it first, bro.
So Dante Moore, technically still in kind of a battle there at UCLA. Is it going to be him? Is it going to be Schlee? Who's it going to be? We don't really know. But as far as like the Devy style goes, obviously, I mean, I like him a lot. In great size for a quarterback. He seems super mature in interviews. He seems like he's ready to lead, which I think is a huge characteristic for a quarterback. Just the maturity, his, what he shows in interviews is huge for me. Like when I'm going to ranking or thinking about a potential player on my team, you don't want a guy that, feels like he's entitled to everything. He's kind of one of those guys that I believe he's even said, he wants to win the job, but if he waits, he's going to learn and be a sponge and take it all in.
Yep.
And then I'll save number 3 for Brian because he loves the guy. But if I was drafting right now and he was available, I mean, I could make a case that Drake May would be my number 1 pick. So
I'll say, like, if you put Drake May and Caleb Williams in this last draft, it wouldn't shock me if both of those were drafted ahead of the quarterbacks that were there. So
I agree.
I agree. Bryce Young, who's great, very productive, good arm, and like super smart, whatever, always making the right decisions. But Caleb Williams has the size and the painted fingernails and stuff. So I like Drake May a lot too. We want to see it again for the next season. We want to see it without Josh Downs and does Tez come in and take that number 1 spot, where maybe it's even better for Drake May because he's got like all of his key targets are going to be also tall, good red zone targets with some flexibility there. But yeah, Drew Aller, I like him a lot, and I think they will lean on the run game early this year at Penn State, and then we'll see Drew Aller kind of step into his own probably week 4, 5, 6-ish, somewhere in there. And then Quinn Ewers at Texas, like their receiving core is loaded. I'm just stoked to see. I remember right before the draft last year, Dillingham and I were talking about the potential of a trade, where I was going to give 2 first-round picks for Ewers. We ended up not doing the deal, but it was like super close to where if one of us was really adamant, the other one would have done it. I feel like at least. And we didn't make it happen. I wanted to kind of pair up, have that Ewers to Worthy quarterback receiver stack, but we didn't end up doing it. And midway through the year, I'd have been nervous about that trade, but by now I'd be feeling pretty good about it because I think Ewers is he's gonna have a bright future in the NFL. How about you, Matt? Who do you like out of that draft? And if you were drafting number 1 overall in this past year, would you take a different quarterback off of this list, or would you have rolled with a Bryce Young?
Honestly, I probably would have gone with the guy we have at number 1. I felt like when the trade was made to go to number 1 in the NFL draft, I was like, this is not a year where you've got that consensus guy who know if you don't go up and get that guy at number 1, that your career is going to change. I felt like it was a very odd move in this year to go up there because it felt like that the talent level was down just a little bit. If Drake May or Caleb Williams was there and they went to number 1, you're like, oh, they're going there to get that guy.
Yeah,
I would have felt a little bit differently, but can't fault the team for making the move and going up to that spot because they really wanted a guy. I just didn't feel like there was that guy. If it was a Drake May or Caleb Williams in this draft, I think things might be a little. I would have had a little different consideration.
Yep,
I agree.
How about you, Doug? What do you think?
I agree. I mean, you could make a case that Hendon Hooker was the best quarterback in this draft, but you didn't get to see him all year. You know what I mean? There's just it's one of those things to me. The guys that were at the top 5, I don't think any of them stood out really that much further than the rest. Will Levis falling, another one who was first round rumored. And we know how he plays when he has a chip on his shoulder. You never know what's going to happen with those guys.
And when he's got that mayonnaise in his coffee.
Yep, he does, which is disgusting.
That dude has definitely got some issues there, man. That's pitiful.
Yeah, at the end of the day, if Caleb Williams, Drake May were in this year's draft, I think they would have gotten drafted above the guys that got drafted.
I agree. And you know what? We should just go ahead and say, because we left number 1 for last. We've already talked about it a few times. Number 1 on this list, Caleb Williams from USC. So now we can get into the entire conversation. We got Caleb Williams, number 1. BMAC, why is he number 1 on this list for Devy at this point over and above everybody else?
A lot of analysts think he's a generational talent, like an easy plug and play, like far and away the number 1 quarterback in the recent draft history. So, man, we'll see. But I would buy in. Like, he can make all the throws. He's got perfect size. He can run. He's just got it all. Like, I think him going to the right spot in the NFL a year from now, I think he's potentially tank worthy, honestly, to have a team that might have some bad breaks or injuries or whatever early on in the year, just kind of, I don't know, throw in what's your boy, Doug, Minshew or something like that and lose some games and then end up drafting Caleb Williams. So we'll see. I think
what happens at Indianapolis with Anthony Richardson this year. Minshew may start and you may see
is Minshew there?
Yeah,
I didn't even know where he was. But anyways, love Caleb Williams. I mean, if you did have that combined draft, Caleb Williams would be a top 5 pick, I feel like. Even with all the NFL assets at play. Like, he's just that good. Like, just that good.
And it's not even that he's just that good. I mean, you look at his supporting cast. Look at the people around him that even make him look even better. I mean, he was throwing to Addison last year, for example. The dude, can catch a ball with 3 defensive backs draped all over him. Like, it's just, and he's one of the, arguably, and people have said it about him, one of the best route runners that they've seen in a long time, So just the supporting cast that Caleb Williams has to play with, like you said, Brian, if he went to the wrong system, could be rough. But with what he's playing with now, and the fact that he just seems to kind of have it all together a little bit, the painting the nails is one thing for me. I don't like it, but
that's not what you did last Friday or whatever.
It's not last Friday. We did the podcast on Thursday, Brian. But if it was me, and because I'm a little bit of a risk taker, maybe that's my old cop days or whatever, but I would take Drake May before I took Caleb Williams.
All right, B-Mac, well, I've got a question for you. I want you to put your thinking cap on. I want you to hop into your time machine, and I want you to go back a few years. Pretend we're having this exact same conversation the year before Joe Burrow gets his big year in college.
Yep.
Where would you have ranked Joe Burrow on this list, a guy that had a lot of potential but never did anything in college before he went and blew up? Where would you put him on a list like this in a 1 to 25 ranking? There's a reason why I bring this up.
Well, let's see. I don't have my thinking hat on. I have on my 5 and 7 hat, my Gators hat right now. So the year before, I was at the LSU Florida game. It was in the swamp. Game ends on a Joe Burrow, his second interception of the game. It was a pick six, and it was nothing. It was nothing for him in terms of Devy. Like, of course, he had the talent. 4-star quarterback, goes to Ohio State, has the arm, already had great receiving core on the roster at LSU, and then you've got the co-OC that comes in there, and for whatever reason his name escapes me right now. But changed the offense completely, and that's where we talk about fit. There's a lot of these guys who have great talent, but are they able to set aside the salesman tactics of recruiting and just get the right fit? I think that's just so important. Of course, like Burrow would have been nowhere near.
He may not have even made the list.
Top 25 Devy. Yeah, nowhere near. But it is about getting the right opportunity while also having the right tools. Like, Bo Nix would have been on this list coming in as a freshman, and then he quickly would find his way off the list. So it is a little bit touch and go. And it is sad to see players that maybe just make the wrong choice or choices when it comes to recruiting or the portal. And then either they don't have it, or man, if it's the wrong fit, that just sucks. But I think Burrow is the ultimate example there, and that's a good one to kind of pick and see what he can be now as like a premier player for a team on a side of the NFL and the AFC that's just stacked at quarterback.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the reason I bring it up is because one of the things about CFB Dynasty, it's all about analytics. It's about doing all the analysis of like you said, what the guy's measurables are, where he's at. But there's always going to be somebody, because we're talking about humans. We're talking about, late teens, early 20s, guys that are still in development. They're going to come out of nowhere. We're going to get to the end of the year. We're going to be like, wow, that guy was nowhere near the top 25 list. Devy, it may not be a Joe Burrow, but there's going to be somebody right now that you may have your eye on that is not on this list that's going to jump up, and he's going to be a draft capable guy. And that's one of the great things about fantasy football, college or pro, is that you're going to have those guys. They're going to jump up, and they could be the guy that changes your entire team. And you just never saw him before that year because, like you said, it could be a system, could be just a guy's finally clicked. It could be the guys that are around him. It could be a change of scenery, whatever it may be. But it's going to be great to see who goes into that Joe Burrow category and jumps in and maybe is a draftable quarterback next year. that was not even on anybody's radar right now, except for maybe Mike Dillingham, of course, who just always seems to find these guys.
Nah, man. So let's and there's one thing, like being a data stats nerd and all that stuff. I find myself taking it too seriously from time to time, honestly. There are NFL GMs that get this stuff wrong every draft. And it's just one of those things that my advice, like if you're drafting or whatever, the guy that you really like, find a way to take that guy, even if you've got to take him a little early. Because, yeah, maybe it'll work out. I was that with Milroe last year. It seems like, every year you just kind of have that guy that you really want for one reason or another. But, yeah, like the Bears trading up to take Trubisky. Like who saw that coming? And then also, would you have had the guts to take Josh Allen from Wyoming at 2 or 3 or whenever he went? A lot of NFL GMs didn't see Mahomes coming out of Texas Tech having success. But one guy did, at least one guy did, right? Andy Reid. So it's one of those things where it's certainly touch and go. And if you're drafting freshman quarterbacks, it can be difficult, but you find a guy that you think would have the best propensity to make it to the NFL or whatever based on where they are and the talent that they have, and you're looking at the archetype and just kind of hoping things work out along the way.
All right, we got 2 different things we want to talk about real quick before we get to the end of the show. So, Doug, something that's near and dear to your heart, hiccups. You brought up before the show. Let's talk about the Bo Jackson article. Talk about what you think about that. That's some craziness.
Yeah,
that just dropped just before the show started.
I'm a Twitter freak. Thanks, Brian, for that, by the way. But I'm always looking at Twitter for fun news or headlines or what's new just in general. And I saw that Bo Jackson has been battling hiccups for almost a year. Like, could you imagine having the hiccups for a year?
I don't even know how that works.
Drives me crazy having the hiccups for 3 minutes. I don't know how I would have the hiccups for a year. Like, I don't know, but
what has he tried to do
or something
to fix it?
I didn't click on the article to read it, but I saw it, kind of laughed a little bit, and then kind of felt bad at the same time.
Yeah, so. Every old wives' tale, every home remedy, everything in the entire world, he's probably tried every bizarre thing to try and get these things to stop. But I saw that headline. I can't even believe it. That just sounds like a miserable existence for a year to not be able to get those things to stop.
So I'm looking at it now, and apparently he's, as of 20 hours ago, he's going to undergo a procedure after 10 months of hiccups. So he's had the hiccups for 10 months, and he's going to be going under a procedure to get this.
Yikes!
There's another one that says he has even smelled the butt of a porcupine to try to cure this.
Oh, whoa!
So I don't know what that has to do with anything, but
ancient old wives' tales.
If that cures some stuff, I don't know. But so for those of you that might be a little sick out there, try smelling the butt of a porcupine. I guess I don't know, but
I'll stick with the hiccups at that point.
The show up. This has been fun.
All right, so real quick, outside smelling the butt of porcupines. So one of the things that we're going to be doing at CFB Dynasty, if you are someone that is out there that is a beat writer for a specific school, we want to be reaching out to you. We want you reaching out to us. We want to have a network that's got a minimum of 133 college beat writers, so that way the information we're given, you're the one that is a mile wide and an inch deep with your school. The show has to be a mile wide and an inch deep. So we want to be able to get your expert analysis from your school and be able to integrate that into what we do on the show, what we do on the rankings. So expect somebody to be reaching out to you. If you're listening to this podcast, we want you to be reaching out to us so we can get that database together. BMAC, Doug, let's talk about that real quick before we get off of here. Talk about why you feel like that is so important to be able to reach out to these beat writers.
Sure. So yeah, we this is something we do. I think this is our maybe 5th year doing this, but maybe 4th. I don't remember, but it's one of our readers' like favorite things because it does give you that preseason magazine feel where we're talking each position and what happened in spring and in the portal and who are some players that you see kind of breaking out. And this is how you find out about a Rondale Moore the year before they break out and all that stuff. So we should have plenty soon. We're starting our outreach, but certainly we do have some that reach out. We try and feature the writer, feature anything that they want, link to their website, whatever, to give them that added benefit to kind of do that on for us and for us as a community. So it's a fun one, and it's one that affects our rankings a lot. And because we'll be going right into that right after we're done with this series.
All right, and just announced while we're sitting here, this is the day the NFL schedule is going to be dropping. They said Dolphins Patriots for the first time in 4 years is not going to be opening weekend. It's going to be Sunday Night Football. They're going to have Tom Brady in to celebrate him retiring from the NFL on Sunday Night Football. That to me sounds like it's going to be great television because of all the bad blood when he left and went to the Bucs and all the insanity of the Dolphins losing a draft pick because of the Tom Brady and tampering. Just seems like a very odd thing to be doing on Sunday Night Football, but give it to the NFL. They're always going to find some weird angle for some of these games.
For sure.
That's a fun one.
All right. So we want you guys to like and subscribe everywhere you can find us on YouTube, on Discord, on Twitter. Let's get out there. Let's make sure we're building that Discord community. We're getting ready to just get into the summer so that way we can start seeing some summer ball. We want to hear your commentary. We want to hear your thoughts on this podcast. And we'll go from there. So on behalf of Brian McElfresh and Doug Gravely, my name is Matt Knowles. We thank you guys once again for watching the CFBDynasty.com podcast or listening on your favorite podcast site. We'll see you next week. We talk about running backs in Devy. See ya.
See you guys.